Welcome. I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. We begin with comedian Amy Poehler. Her one-liners are quick, they're smart, and they're devilishly funny. As our Luke Burbank found out, it's sometimes hard to tell when she's actually being serious, which makes for an interesting conversation.
How big of a deal was being funny to you when you were a kid? Like, was that part of your personality?
That's a deep question, Luke. Yeah, I did like the feeling of knowing I could make people laugh, or if I tried to be funny, it would work. Sometimes I didn't try, and I got laughs, and that was sad. Those were sad days.
Mostly, though, the laughs Poehler got were intentional, especially as she honed her comedic chops. First, in Boston, where she attended college.
Not Harvard. People should know that.
You know that it was Harvard when the people don't clarify.
Yeah, people from
if
Harvard
people
like
say,
to say,
I went to school in Boston, it's probably Harvard.
It's Harvard, but it wasn't Harvard. It was Harvard Plus. It was the more fancier Harvard.
There's more from that chat coming up a little later on in the show.
Do you feel like comedy cancel culture is actually a thing?
Well, I think comedy has an expiration date. Comedy is a fresh product. I mean, nothing is more subjective than what makes you laugh. It's, wild. Country by country, state by state, family member by family member, people feel very strong about what they think is funny.
Then we're off to a unique southern restaurant with Martha Teichner, where there's a bit of history on the menu too.
In my sort of simple thought process of it, I was a white guy, a black woman would be my perfect counterpart to running this place.
Before the meeting, I thought, am I going to be a symbol here? Am I going to be a living, breathing political statement? Because I didn't want to.
Trained in France, Mashama Bailey was a sous chef in New York City, working for a prominent woman chef, when Jono, a media entrepreneur with zero restaurant experience, approached her about becoming his partner in The Grey. The Grey opened in 2014. The loaded history of the place, part of its identity. But Jono and Mashama avoided any discussion of race.
All of that just ahead on Here Comes the Sun. We know her from SNL and Parks and Recreation, but Amy Poehler's latest endeavor has her paying homage to another comedy legend, a red-headed one. And as our Luke Burbank reports, she's having a ball doing it.
Amy Poehler has been on some of comedy's biggest stages and has delivered some truly memorable lines.
I haven't really been following the controversy over Zero Dark 30, but when it comes to torture, I trust the lady who spent 3 years married to James Cameron.
But before all that, of course, she was just a kid, the child of two public school teachers in Burlington, Massachusetts, who couldn't quite put her finger on it, but knew there was something she liked about making people laugh.
How big of a deal was being funny to you when you were a kid? Like, was that part of your personality?
That's a deep question, Luke. Yeah, I did like the feeling of knowing I could make people laugh, or if I tried to be funny, it would work. Sometimes I didn't try, and I got laughs, and that was sad. Those were sad days.
Mostly, though, the laughs Poehler got were intentional, especially as she honed her comedic chops. First, in Boston, where she attended college.
Not Harvard. People should know that.
You know that it was Harvard when the people don't clarify.
Yeah, people from
if
Harvard
people
like to
say,
say,
I went to school in Boston, it's probably Harvard.
It's Harvard, but it wasn't Harvard. It was Harvard Plus. It was the more fancier Harvard.
And then in Chicago, where she joined the legendary Second City Improv troupe, and later
we're desperate for help this summer.
Co-founded Upright Citizens Brigade.
Okay, says here you were a dancer. Were these national tours?
No, they were strip clubs. I put down dancing because I thought it sounded better.
I see.
And it was in Chicago where Poehler met a young Tina Fey, whom she connected with instantly, and then reconnected with a few years later at Saturday Night Live.
I loved the people, but I also loved the skills I learned in terms of letting things go, fighting for things. It's like an emergency room. You feel really excited that you survived it, and you also might die if you're there too long.
Poehler left SNL after 8 seasons to play the role that may very well end up defining her career, Leslie Knope.
This is a whole thing
Yeah.
that a lot of people, particularly women, see as a way of viewing their world and their existence.
Yeah, I think what she represented was this person in a job that felt like it had a low ceiling, but she had a lot of big hopes and dreams, and she was trying to figure out how to work the system or have the system work for her without losing her sense of joy, spirit, without it crushing her.
While Hollywood can have a crushing effect on many people, particularly women, Poehler has found a way to thrive and grow into an influential producer in her own right.
You ever watch like nature documentaries and magpies grab shiny things to build a nest? That's what I've done here.
Inside her production office, she showed us some of the mementos she's accumulated over the years.
This was the Pawnee seal that was on set and behind Leslie's desk, and I stole it, and now I put it behind my desk.
And this is your real desk where you actually produce things for your production company, Paper Kite.
Yeah.
Do you ever like look back at the Pawnee seal and think like, let me try to channel that optimism or energy or whatever it is that Leslie had?
It's nice to have it behind me because I worked with it behind me for so long, so many years.
I think it's interesting too that this is your
I really didn't clean up my
day
desk
planner?
for this. Okay.
Because I mean, this is amazing that you're still using.
You're not allowed to look at that.
Okay, okay.
Along with producing a variety of projects, Poehler also directs, including, most recently, Lucy and Desi, a documentary about the famous couple.
And the only reason I Love Lucy exists is because they wanted to be together so they could have a family and make the marriage work. So they made this show, and now the rest of the universe has it, and they never got what they wanted.
Lucy strongly believed that she shouldn't be labeled a genius because she works really hard and worked really hard at her craft. I think that not enough women are called geniuses. I think that that word is thrown around a lot, but it's often not given to women as much. So I like to call Lucy a genius, even though I know she would hate it.
Do you feel like there are some parallels between your career and her career?
I feel very connected to what I believe she was feeling or going through. How do I balance work and family? How do I take advantage of my currency and my opportunity? How do I amplify voices? How do I take up space in the room? All that kind of stuff that Lucy had to deal with 50 years before I did, or women like me.
Media profiles of Poehler often focus on her role as a woman in the comedy world. And as our interview drew to a close, there was just one more question I had to get answered.
Done, but they asked me to not ask about this, but I can't let this go.
So you're, okay, but just pausing.
I'm
So
going
they
right
asked
here.
you not to ask.
Yes, and I'm going
That's
to
interesting.
anyway.
This is telling me more about you, Luke.
Are men funny?
Yeah, they're getting there. And I'm proud of them. That's what I want to say to all the men right now. I'm really, really proud of you. Good job, buddy.
Luke Burbank with Amy Poehler. More excerpts from their conversation coming up in just a few minutes. But first, we stop off at an old bus station in the Deep South for a bite to eat and a history lesson. It's called The Gray, not a typical name for a restaurant, but there's a reason for that name and a reason for its place in the Deep South. Martha Teichner takes us to a place where the soul isn't just in the food.
The past is what brings tourists to Savannah, Georgia. Its historic district, the antebellum South, caught in a picturesque storybook time warp.
All right, you guys right there, just like that.
A few blocks away is the Gray, as in Greyhound, a destination restaurant in this destination city.
Looking for 3 tuna, Victor Moose.
With a very different story to tell about Savannah's past. The story of a reckoning with race.
I was just thinking about what this place used to be, a segregated bus terminal, and behind us was the colored entrance and the colored waiting room.
This is what it looked like when it opened in 1938. Not the wreck Jono Morisano, a transplant from New York City, bought in 2012 and decided to turn into his idealistic dream of what a restaurant could be.
In my sort of simple thought process of it, I was a white guy, a black woman would be my perfect counterpart to running this place.
Before the meeting, I thought, am I going to be a symbol here? Am I going to be a living, breathing political statement? Because I didn't want to.
Trained in France, Mashama Bailey was a sous chef in New York City, working for a prominent woman chef, when Jono, a media entrepreneur with zero restaurant experience, approached her about becoming his partner in the Gray.
We talked about pork shanks, right? And we both realized that our grandmothers both cooked pork shanks. And that was a common moment for us.
It's nice to come back and see what it is now versus what I remembered as a child.
And this is the house?
And this is the house.
And although she was born in New York, Mashama had actually lived in Savannah for 6 years as a child.
Factor in the building. The building is an obstacle that you guys have to work with.
A building Mashama once would have had to enter by the back door.
This isn't about being comfortable. This is about moving with purpose and thinking ahead.
The Gray opened in 2014. The loaded history of the place, part of its identity. But Jono and Mashama avoided any discussion of race.
That question really came home when we had our tragic event here, where, that was where we really had to confront it because it was unspoken.
It was unspoken. I was often the only black person in the room.
The tragic event was the death in front of Mashama of the Gray's general manager, Scott Waldrop, run down by 3 young men fleeing a shooting in 2017.
I didn't know how much I trusted Jono until I called him that night. Scott was a huge part of the Gray.
I answered the phone and she just was apoplectic, kind of like, wailing and hard to make out and everything. Maybe we started to really see each other as partners at that point. It's like in tragedy and in trying times, you figure out who your friends are. Yeah.
Right. I used to walk to school this way. I walk to school this way every morning.
What started then and continues still is a conversation.
I agree with that.
Good, I'm glad. My plan worked.
Yes, your plan was awesome.
FYI, Mashama swears she didn't rescue a greyhound because of the restaurant.
I want to add some a la carte items.
By the time Jono asked her to collaborate with him on a book about the Gray, they trusted each other enough to face head-on everything both of them had until then left unsaid.
And I didn't want to talk about race. I didn't want to talk about my feelings about race, and I didn't want to talk about his feelings about race.
And what happened?
We talked about race. It was hard. It was hard.
Mashama and Jono, accompanied by Jono's wife, Carol, rented an apartment in Paris, and the book took shape.
It was like a 6-week-long therapy session about ownership, pride, pain, fear, confusion. It was really about opening those wounds and dealing with them.
Was I that guy who was talking a good game about progress, diversity, women's empowerment because there was nothing at stake?
Why would you hate us if we have nothing that you want?
That dialogue would become the book, Black, White, and the Gray.
Was this part of my racism, my legacy, that remained hidden away in my unconscious?
There's always a question of intent when black folks and white folks do business together.
The emotion was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And Mashama can talk about how many times I cried and how many times she cried.
It was less than him.
The restaurant is their safe space now.
You can't walk the streets of Savannah and deny the bounty that this part of the world has to offer. I'm doing some creamed collards.
I've never had cream collar.
We smoke half of them and braise half, and then we blanch the other half, and we incorporate it with the bechamel. Little Parmesan cheese, butter, flour.
Mmm, the nice smokiness.
Do you taste it?
And the sweetness of the onion.
Yeah.
Mm. In 2019, Mashama Bailey won a prestigious James Beard Award and is up for another this year for cooking that continues to pile up accolades and blow to pieces preconceived notions about what Southern food is. The Gray is surviving COVID. A painting hangs above the most visible table. There's a Greyhound bus in it. Black people are sitting in the front, whites in the back.
And we had more than a handful of people walk out of the restaurant, before ordering because they were offended by it.
The picture is quietly provocative. Just like the conversation Mashama Bailey and Jono Morisano have dared to have.
I don't think Mashama and I are fixing anybody's problems. I don't think we're fixing Savannah's problems, the South's problems, America's problems. We're not even fixing our own problems. What we're really doing is just creating a dialogue and almost like a safe space for a dialogue between each other. And that's the best we can do, I think.
Is this why you haven't posted any TikToks?
I haven't posted any TikToks yet. I'll tell you why I haven't.
After the break, more from Amy Poehler.
I love it.
Stay with us.
So I know that the creators on TikTok.
Welcome back. Here again is Luke Burbank with Amy Poehler.
You started SNL at an extremely auspicious time. The first show back after 9/11 or something?
Yeah.
What was that like for you to be in your early 20s? This is a huge break, and America is wondering, will we ever laugh again?
Yes, America was asking, will we ever laugh again? And I was asking, where are the bathrooms? How does this work? No, it was, I had lived in New York almost 5 or 6 years at that point, and I felt like a New Yorker, and like all New Yorkers, I felt an incredible, complicated sense of emotions during that time. And also, I was doing a sketch comedy show in New York. So I remember I have such fond feelings of being so grateful for a sense of community and purpose during that time. But it was strange. It was a time when we had to tenderly figure out how to communicate with the audience.
There's a lot of conversation around comedy now having to do with the idea of cancel culture, and you can't say anything anymore. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like comedy cancel culture is actually a thing?
Well, I think comedy has an expiration date. Comedy is a fresh product. I mean, nothing is more subjective than what makes you laugh. It's, wild. Country by country, state by state, family member by family member, people feel very strong about what they think is funny. And therefore, it's really complicated. And I think that's okay. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be this art form that makes you think and question and figure out, why do I like that? Why am I laughing at that? Why do I not laugh at that anymore? Can we say that anymore? That's all okay. That's what's interesting about that form, is it can withstand that. And then you can change your mind tomorrow, right? Or you can learn something new the next day and be like, I didn't see that, or I didn't think about that. Or I saw that and I thought about that, and here's why this joke is better. So it's always moving and changing. The line's always moving, which I don't think is a bad thing. I like knowing when I made a mistake. I like figuring out, wait, okay, I learned something now. Okay, off we go, moving forward. And I also like people saying, wait, hold up. Are we overcorrecting here? Are we adding perspective that wasn't there? Are we reading? I like all of the discussion of it. I know it drives some people crazy. One hopes that you're different than you were 20 years ago. One hopes that you've learned some things about how the world works. And one hopes that you could also go back and say, the thing that I said when I was 20. I mean, I was very lucky. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I didn't tweet my feelings at 16. You know, I'm lucky. I'm a generation that doesn't have that, but this generation does. Like, everybody says their feelings in real time out loud. And then it's kept in a digital drawer.
Is this why you haven't posted any TikToks?
Yet.
But you look at TikTok?
I haven't posted any TikToks yet because I have high respect for TikTok. I love it. So I know that the creators on TikTok, you got to earn your place. You can't just barge into TikTok and be like, hi, I'm here. I'm Gen X. We take our time. We raised ourselves. We know we're just going to take it slow. Literally also because we hurt our knee.
Mm-hmm. A lot of those dances
Yeah.
take a lot
so we gotta
of
take
flexibility.
It slow. Yeah. We rolled an ankle.
Yeah.
So that's why we're taking it slow.
I feel like you're sort of in the loving comedy universe.
Ooh.
Which is to be funny, but to not be mean unnecessarily, to punch up. I mean, is that something that you really think about when you're creating stuff?
I do know what you're saying. There is this sensibility that I am drawn to at times, and Mike Schur and Nick Offerman and Tina, all the people that I work with, we all come from a similar improv sketch background vibe sometimes. And it was really distilled in Parks and Recreation, which that experience was an example of, really funny people also enjoying this feeling. And I think that the feeling of it all is really interesting because I think it's quite hard to do. I think it's easy to make fun of and hard to do. Because that is the part of TV that is the magic part, is that that switcheroo, that laughing to crying kind of stuff.
I heard you say that in an interview that I think you said something like going from crying to laughing in short order adds years to your life.
I think that expression of humanness is so exciting if you can get it. So I just think the feeling of laughing, after you've felt something is really special, because I think those two things, again, are hard to do. It's easy to laugh, and it's also easy to feel sad, and to put them together is very sweet and salty in a way that is so satisfying to me. And I do think it extends your life. And I'd love for you to take my course. It's $250 for a 10-week course, laughing to crying.
Okay.
How can I extend my life? I just need you to hold on, before you say yes, and I know you will. I need you to take a few vitamins that I sell,
all right,
and a powder that I have in the trunk of my car.
Do you accept a payment plan? Because $250 out the door is a little much for me.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a lawn that you could mow.
Okay. Oh, great.
I have some dogs you can walk.
I'm in.
I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you here next time on Here Comes the Sun.